Welcome to Simply Quilts. Nothing can be more relaxing than an afternoon of quilting, but a painful back or tired eyes can spoil the whole experience. The author of RX for Quilters is here to show us how to avoid those pains with some simple preventative steps. Please welcome quilter and doctor Susan Delaney Mack. Susan, welcome to Simply Quilts.
Thank you, Ellen.
I'm a quilter. I know the benefits of quilting, but if somebody's watching and they're not a quilter, tell them.
Quilting has wonderful health benefits. It lowers your heart rate, it lowers your blood pressure, it sends a wave of relaxation through your whole body. If you quilt, you have fewer colds and flu.
You're kidding me.
That's true. You sleep better at night.
Ergonomic is the big term right now. What does that mean?
Ergonomics is a new science, and it involves fitting the workstation and the tools to the exact body of the worker.
So this is why your cutting table would be higher, so that you aren't in a weird position.
Yes.
Okay, I know I had to visit my chiropractor after bending over. I mean, for real, this was not good. What are some issues that quilters can prevent?
Well, we can go a long way toward not having any lower back pain. We can prevent eye strain.
How do we prevent these aches and pains?
Well, good posture is very important.
I gotta sit up straight. What else?
And if you sit up straight, you look 5 pounds thinner.
Yeah,
so
it's good all the way around.
That's wonderful. So good posture is very important. Taking a 10-minute break every hour has wonderful side effects. For one thing, it allows your body to rest and recover from any tiny injuries that you've had during that time. And it also will rev up your metabolism again. When we sit for 1 hour, our metabolism drops by 15%. And that means we burn less calories, and none of us are interested in that.
No, no. Now, I keep my ironing board sometimes right beside me and other times across the room. I would assume that keeping it across the room is better.
Yes, because you get up and you stretch a little bit and give those muscles, those tiny muscles, a rest. The muscles that move our fingers are no bigger than a pencil, and it's very easy for them to get fatigued.
Now, keeping the ironing board across the room, does that equal the 10-minute break?
No, you still have to take a 10-minute break.
But it's worth it, right?
If you want to be thin.
Yeah.
And if you want to get that 25% more accomplished in the next hour and in the next year.
Think about that. Think about what you could accomplish if you just could do 25% more. It's kind of an awesome thought.
It's very counterintuitive, but some of the best things are.
You have an exercise here that's a good stretching exercise. Will you share that with us?
Yes, there's actually 3, and I call them yes, no, maybe so.
Okay.
Because that's easy to remember. And if you'll do those with me.
All right.
If you just put your head down to your chin.
And this is?
Yes.
No. Yes, okay.
And then put it back.
Okay.
And we'll just do that 3 times.
Okay. This is like my weight class, you know what I mean?
But your neck will feel so much better. And then we'll go no, and of course that's go to one side.
And the other.
And you do that 3 times.
And how often should you do this?
Oh, at the end of your 50 minutes of quilting. And then maybe so, this one is great. You can shrug up to your ears and then just let it flop down.
Well, you're just loosening everything up.
You are, but doesn't your neck feel great since you did that?
I just built a new sewing space, and the big issue was lighting. I mean, this is what we spent hours and hours and hours. And tell everybody what they need to know about lighting.
Well, lighting is very important. If you're 40 years old, you need 20% more light than you did when you're 30. If you're 50, you need 50% more light. And if you're 60, you need 70% more light.
You mean it's going to get worse the more I'm already at?
Sorry.
We have 2 different types of lights here. Would something like this work okay?
Oh, if you're 40, if you just put a higher wattage bulb in your one chairside light, you'll be fine.
All right, but then what about this light over here?
That's a nice task light. That's nice, really, for any age. When you're 50, you're going to need 2 lights.
Well, when the building inspector came, they couldn't believe the lights in the room. And I just said, no, I'm going to need it. And frankly, I have used them. So lighting is a big deal. You know, take the time to get the right stuff, right?
Yes.
Great information. Don't go anywhere, all right? When we come back, we'll be creating a unique heart block using ergonomic rotary cutting methods. Welcome back to Simply Quilts. Like many quilters, I enjoy using tools that make quilting faster and more accurate. But using some of these tools requires precaution. Here to show us how to rotary cut the right way is Dr. Susan Delaney Mack. Susan, should we be concerned about rotary cutting?
Rotary cutting is great, and it's safe to do it up to 2 hours a day with your 10-minute break in between those 2 hours.
Only 2 hours?
Sorry.
Rotary cutters have come a long way. I can remember when they were introduced on the market. How have they changed?
They've changed because the handles have gotten thicker. There is a disorder called pizza cutter's palsy.
Really?
Yes, and pizza cutters were getting a paralysis of their thumb and index finger because of cutting pizzas all day.
Well, that's an old rotary cutter, right?
This is an old one. It's very thin, and it can easily cut into your hand and damage that nerve. They have gotten fatter over the years, and here's a really fat one. But this one, we have to take a precaution. Once we squeeze it, we have to lock it open so our hand doesn't get tired.
And then lock it closed too, right?
and lock it closed when you're finished. We'll do that. Now, if you have one of these older rotary cutters, you can either use a bicycling glove or another glove when you use it.
To make it fatter.
To make it fatter. Or you could wrap bicycling tape around it or any kind of tape around it, and then it would be perfectly safe and you wouldn't get pizza cutter's palsy.
So you don't need to toss it, just fix it.
Just fix it.
The condition of the blade makes a difference also.
Yes, yes. We're going to be talking today some about repetitive strain injury, and if you have repetitive strain injury, you have to conserve your hand motions, and if you use a blade that's nicked, you will have to...
this is what you get.
Yeah, you get this, and you have to cut it again and again.
So what do you need to do to keep your rotary cutter in good form?
That's a really good question. There's several things. It's always good to either have a new blade or sharpen your blades. It's really good to loosen this screw a tiny bit so that the blade rolls a little bit more easily. And while you're doing that, put a little drop of sewing machine oil under there to help it move. And of course, to avoid these nicks, we want to make sure that we have the whole mat clear of pins.
And that just unglues you when you're cutting. You go click. Ah, there goes the rotary cutter.
$10.
Right there. Let's take a look at what we're doing today. This is just charming.
Oh, thank you.
You collect pigs, I understand, like my daughter. We are going to be doing a heart block, but not so traditional. It has a different look to it.
Yes.
Is this hard to do?
No, and it's fun.
I think it's time to cut the background. Is there anything we need to think about in terms of height of table?
Yes, the ideal height for a work table is 4 inches below your bent elbow, and this will help you prevent back strain.
All right.
Quilters, though, like 6 inches for rotary cutting, and the way to have the best of both worlds is to have a pair of clogs that you can slip on, and they'll raise you up a couple of inches.
That's real interesting, because sometimes I find the shoes that I'm wearing does affect my back, so pay attention to that to get yourself at the right height.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, well, down here you've got your template to cut out the heart, and you will show us how to get the hangout, or what do you call it?
Bump out.
Bump out. That's so cute. How do we get that?
We just move that template around until we find a place where the motifs are going to bump out in an attractive way, and then we just go ahead and mark it.
What is this for?
This increases the diameter, the effective diameter of the pencil, and it's wonderful if you have a repetitive strain injury like I do.
Someone's at a keyboard or something,
That's
this would be the right thing.
That's how I got
Let's take a look at the block we're working on again, which is a bump out on it. That is just charming. Do you call this when pigs fly?
Yes.
You have some great ironing board tips, so I'd like to walk over there and share with everybody. I have never heard of this before, and I've been quilting for a while. Tell us about this.
Well, we have a stool, 6 to 9 inch stool, and if you'll just put your foot up on it.
Okay.
And this will de-stress your back. Surgeons do this whenever they operate. Yes.
I would assume the height of an ironing board is important also.
Yes, and once again, 4 inches below your bent elbow. This one is
way
really
too
much
low.
lower.
Way too low. What can you do if it's too low?
You can drill out the stops that are keeping it from opening up for the full length of the track, or you can put it up on blocks.
Does anybody make tall ironing boards?
Some of the European countries sell ironing boards that go up to 37 inches.
And this is just a neat little aside. What's this here for?
Well, that's my little scissors for snipping threads on the ironing board.
And they're always ready to go.
They're always ready to go.
Don't fall on the floor.
Right.
We have really great information. We'll continue our heart quilt and get some tips for working at the sewing machine when we come back. Welcome back. I'm Alex Anderson. We're creating a wacky applique heart quilt, and we're doing it the ergonomic way. Here to show us how is quilter and doctor Susan Delaney Meck. Susan, what was the inspiration for this wacky quilt?
Well, this particular pig quilt, the inspiration was the binding. I already had the binding made, and I had already picked out the theme of pigs. So
you started from the outside in.
I did.
I'd like to take a look at the quilt. You call it wacky?
Yes. Wacky is for two reasons. One is the joyful pairing of two fabrics, and the other one is the silly bump outs.
It is cute. I've never seen this done before, and I think kids would love this quilt.
Kids do love it.
We cut out the heart shape, and we're ready to get going to applique. Tell us about how you prepare. I haven't quite seen it like that.
Well, I love this technique of applique because it is 100% portable. Once I cut out those hearts and cut out the background, I'm on the road.
Okay, because what, you based it down?
I've just based it right down.
I was surprised that there wasn't paper on the back or anything.
No paper.
It's ready to go.
No ironing, just do it.
And then what do you do once you prepare it?
Well, you pin that basted heart to the background, and then you're ready to applique. And if there's a particularly intricate shape or you're just a beginner, you might want to baste it down again and pull out those pins.
Good idea, because the thread does get caught on the pins.
It does.
Show us a couple stitches appliquing.
Okay.
It is the basic applique stitch, right?
It's just a basic applique stitch.
All right. And typically, you'd probably want the thread color to match the blue, right?
Yes.
The top of the heart.
Yes. So you go in right where you came up, you're just behind it, and then you come up again.
Is there anything you need to think about when you are actually taking the stitches, or is this just whatever you want?
Yes. If you have a repetitive strain injury of your arm, either from your computer or from quilting, it may be your natural tendency to stabilize this fabric by tucking your baby finger behind there.
And why do we do that?
Just to stabilize the fabric. It's almost like having a little quilting hoop there.
Right.
But you can't do that anymore if you have a repetitive strain injury. You have to keep your fingers together. And then the other thing that's very natural to do is take that baby finger and stretch the fabric, read out the thread with it. You can't do that anymore if you have a repetitive strain injury.
Now, how hard is this going to be to break our habits?
It's hard to break the habit, but your arm will thank you.
Okay, now what about at a sewing machine? We need to think about the equipment that we're surrounding ourselves with, starting with the chair.
The chair height is extremely important if you're going to spare your arms from any kind of repetitive strain injury. And it's very important also for the comfort of your back. You need to, when your feet are planted on the ground, your knee should make a perfect 90-degree angle. And this stabilizes your hips, and it makes it very easy to have good posture.
Now at home, I'm even up higher than this. I'm on a much greater angle. That's bad news?
It really is.
What will happen?
Well, it'll hurt your lower back. You'll get a strain in your lower back.
I have a lower back problem. Oh, I should have learned this like 20 years ago. What about the height of your table?
That's very important also. Once you have adjusted your chair height, and that's the first thing you do, then the second thing, you adjust your table so that when you bend your elbow, these 90-degree angles are very important to avoid injury. Then your fingers can just, when you scoot up, your fingers can just touch the throat plate.
Yeah, it's not the table, then it's the actual throat plate of the machine.
That's right. And this table is 22 inches
How
above
tall
the
are
floor.
you?
I'm 5'6".
So that would be an average?
Yes.
All right. And I always thought you could just adjust the chair to get right. No, they have to work together.
They have to work together because you need to keep your arms straight and your wrists straight to avoid injury.
Here we have the sashing that goes in between.
Yes.
Tell us about this.
This is one reason it's very important to have an extensive stash because I had 19 different colors of turquoise in my stash, and this was the only one that worked with the yellow that matched my binding.
Oh, we all need an excuse to buy fabric.
We do. So,
and you will sew that for us and actually show how your hands work.
yes. And of course, when your foot is on the foot pedal, it's going to be at a slight angle. It's not going to be at 90 degrees anymore, but there's no way to get around that.
And here we go.
Here we go.
Are you going to worry about pulling out that needle? Do I need to worry about that?
You know, I usually sew barefoot, and there wasn't enough room under there for me to do it with my shoe on. I was trying to be polite and leave my shoe on. But
now, talk about safety. In my sewing room, you have to wear shoes. Pins on the floor.
I'm a barefoot quilter.
Are you?
So I'm real careful with pins.
Well, I want you to go a little bit longer just so that people can really see where your hands are at, because this is important.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, my mom always tells me to stand up straight, and this is where it's at, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to pull out that pin.
Susan, I love all the information you're giving us. It's just fascinating. Your doctor skills and your quilting skills are coming together just perfectly. When we come back, Susan will show us a hand quilting technique that will keep you stitching the healthy way. Welcome back to Simply Quilts. We've been learning the ergonomic way to sit, sew, and rotary cut. Here to demonstrate the best way to hand quilt is quilter Dr. Susan Delaney Mack. Susan, what if somebody already has physical problems?
They need to see their doctor right away.
Don't self-diagnose.
Don't.
Because why?
Sometimes there are underlying processes, disease processes like diabetes that can be causing a disease like carpal tunnel syndrome, and you need to know it if you have diabetes.
Okay, and carpal tunnel is one of the problems with hand quilting. Tell us about that.
Yes. When quilters bend their wrists while they quilt, they shred the tendons. Their tendons are about this big, and when you bend your wrist, you're just shredding that tendon, and that's not good.
You will show us how to do it the right way in a minute.
I will.
But let's start with thimbles, because that's just as important, right?
Yes.
You have a couple on your hand.
Yes, this is your basic quilting thimble, and I'm going to tell you why that's not a good idea to use that.
Okay.
This is a leather thumb thimble, and here's another one.
Okay.
And this is a thimble that you hold in your hand, and arthritics really like this one. And you can quilt using this without bending your wrist.
These pads are really important, and I didn't realize that.
Yes, for the under the quilt finger. They prevent needle pricks. This is important if you don't want your finger pricked, but it's also important if you have diabetes or if you've been on chemotherapy, because you cannot afford to prick your finger, and because of the danger of infection if you have either of those conditions.
So while I just toughen up, if you do have an illness, this is a good solution.
It really is.
Now, I quilt with my thumb and my forefinger, and you've brought this picture of the brain. It's fascinating.
Yes, the brain ascribes, this is a picture of your body as your brain sees it, and about a third of it is for your face, a third of it is for your hand, especially your thumb and forefinger, and this is the rest of your body. And your baby finger, your middle finger, and your middle
ring finger,
middle finger are tiny on this. So these. The thumb and the index finger are our strongest fingers.
And that's what I quilt with.
Yes.
Show us now about hand quilting and what we want to avoid and what we want to do.
Okay. Most quilters, when they quilt with one of these lipped thimbles, will bend their wrists.
They get it kind of like crooked around in a real weird position.
They do. And I can't do it right now, I'm sorry.
Can't you? Well, what you're talking about is when you go like this. This is not good.
Yes.
How do you want your hand to be?
You want your wrist to stay straight at all times. I guess I've been quilting the right way for so long, it's hard for me to quilt the wrong way.
And here you're doing it with your thumb.
With my thumb. It was just my smartest finger.
See, I think that's
fascinating.
fascinating.
And I do that same rocking. Go ahead.
Because I love quilting with my thumb. It it's just so much easier.
Yes, and you can quilt twice as fast with your thumb.
Maybe that's why I can get quilts done in 6 weeks or so. I can go in both directions.
That's right.
If somebody has never quilted before, should they start with their forefinger or their thumb or their middle finger? What would you recommend?
What I recommend, if you've never quilted ever, start with your thumb.
Really?
And if you're trying to switch over, if you've had carpal tunnel syndrome and you would like to not have it anymore, use the regular thimble on your middle finger and this, and then do each half of the time.
Susan, thank you so much for coming. We'll stay healthy because of you. Good information. Thanks for joining us. Stay healthy. We'll see you next time on Simply Quilts.